All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. Again, welcome to the June accounting call. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. You all see the joke in here. Unfortunately, it's probably not that applicable because most of you probably don't work in a quiet office, but just in case, there you go. Not going to delve too long into the sporting world because the only good thing is that the Cavaliers won, which for me I like because Cleveland never wins anything. A lot of other people weren't too happy about it, but I liked it. And my A's suck again, so I don't want to dwell on that. No matter how much Meg probably wants me to. But I am going to talk about the A's a little bit later in this call. So there's a teaser for you. So stay on. Next thing I'm going to go right into is the DNA. Most of you are obviously know the new DNA, but just to remind everyone, it's INSPECT, which is impactful, nimble, selfless, passionate, ethical, curious, and teammates. So last month, I talked about curious, I believe. This month, I'm going to talk about nimble. The 3 points on the pledge, I don't normally even go into this much detail on reiterating what the pledge says, but I really like what it has here for nimble, which is constant proactive change is a challenge you embrace. Stay ahead of the competition through adaptability, can't talk, and expect the unexpected. I have a quote I'm going to pull up. I'm going to hurry and exit Slack so someone doesn't message me and make it pop up, because that's something I would do. So here is a great quote. I don't know where it's attributed to, but it's, you change for 2 reasons. Either you learn enough that you want to, or you've been hurt enough that you have to. I would like to think that our company is more the first one than the second one, but unfortunately, I think we've all been burned by things in the past where we've had to adapt after the fact and be more retroactive. But what I love about the pledge is it actually uses the word proactive, because I think that really does encompass what our company is trying to do. We're trying to stay ahead. We're trying to be in front of any change, hopefully all positive, but all change in general. If you've been with Horizon for any period of time, you know that Horizon is very similar to me when I was in grade school, meaning I never sat still, constantly doing something. If I'm sitting still for more than 1 minute, it's shocking. And that's how Horizon is. Our normal standard is to constantly be changing. That's the only thing that you can really count on being consistent 1 year to the next, is that change. It is very different than a lot of companies. We've really embraced it, and there's growing pains that can go with that. But for the most part, I think our employees, you guys and myself and other people have really embraced it and run with it, and I think we've had a lot of success because of that. Whereas a lot of companies wouldn't have that success. So I think that's a good testament to us, especially as we continue to embrace it. If any of you have been in our industry for any amount of time, you probably seen that traditionally our industry is one that resists technology. I'm not kidding you. I was part of a takeover about 5 years ago where when I walked into the office, they had a typewriter. I didn't know what to say. It's hard to give technical advice to a typewriter or someone using one. So that is kind of the norm in our industry. So the fact that we're not just trying to stay up on it but move ahead is pretty unique. So I'd like to think it gives us a great competitive advantage. All right, we're going to go ahead and go into housekeeping, because I know that's all why you dial in, as much as you love my sports minutes. I'm going to start with our same old, which I have to say we're doing better on it, which is emailing help desk. Please email help desk with all your questions. We've had a recent change. We've tried to tighten some things up, both with the creation of the support and implementation department, as well as Jessica coming on board. Jessica's doing great, really getting up to speed and excelling. So continue to please email help desk so that we have the opportunity to track it and to make sure it's going in the correct order and the correct priority, etc. Please let us know if you have any questions about that. But I'm quite happy with where we've gotten in the last 3 to 4 weeks compared to where we were, which I think is a great testament to Jessica. Not really me, but her. I'll give her that credit.
Well, thank you.
Make sure that you're always including the proper details. It takes a lot of time on our end and yours if we're having to come back for clarification. We've had some tickets that honestly will go on for 2 or 3 days longer than they need to, because we're playing either phone tag or email tag, where we're trying to figure out a name or a key detail. So please look at it from our point of view, like what information do I think they need? We'd rather have too much information than not enough. Batch reconciliation, we're seeing an alarming increase of people posting payments with the incorrect amount. Nobody is perfect. You spend 2 minutes with me, you realize that I'm not perfect. And I don't expect anyone to be perfect. However, when it comes to entering payments, that's one where we need to be perfect. And the reason I say that is there's a process you can put in place if you haven't already that should ensure that everything is accurate. If you're manually totaling your payments before you enter them, then there's no reason you should close a batch or process a batch with an incorrect total. Even if the system doesn't read it correctly, if you're scanning, if you're manually doing it, you should catch that. There's no reason for you to be assuming that it's correct. It takes a few extra minutes, but it can harken back to an olden day by using a 10 key or an Excel spreadsheet, whatever you want to do to manually total your checks to make sure it's accurate. Like I said, we're seeing an alarming rise in payments that are being entered with the wrong amount that doesn't match the payment. Obviously, it's possible that even if you manually total it, it could be off if somehow you make 2 mistakes at offset, but hopefully that's enough for you to catch it. Please take the time because those corrections can take 3, 4, 5 weeks to process on the system's end to correct the balance if we don't catch it the day of. So please, 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 take the time to manually total those up to compare it. I do want to mention really quickly about something I talked about on the manager call. So if any of you were on the manager call, you're going to listen to me talk about it again. And for everyone else, it's kind of a cool thing I just wanted to take 2 minutes to talk about for Entrata. I know everything's about Entrata. Sorry for one site folks. But it's a maintenance vanity number. Each of your sites has a different way of handling after-hours maintenance emergencies. Some of you have a really robust system where you actually talk to a live agent. They'll dispatch based on what the problem is. Others just have a simple answering machine that says, like, please call this number, and it's the on-call mobile that you alternate. What this maintenance vanity number is it allows you to use your Jive system, assuming you have one with Canaan. Even if you don't, it creates a permanent maintenance number that can either be tied to a system so that when they call it says, press 1 for maintenance, and then when they press 1, they'll get redirected to that maintenance number. That's not anyone's phone number, so you're not going to have your maintenance guy's personal cell or whatever out in the open. And then the office will actually control where that number redirects. So based on who's on call, they can say, all right, I want our maintenance after hours 2forward to this number tonight. It's not a perfect system. Obviously, there's no backup. There's no filter system. But if you're just simply having an on-call mobile that's being passed around, I think it's a better option for those Entrata sites if that's the case. This is probably more applicable to conventional sites as you guys start coming on because it's only $3 a month at most, and it'll actually record every call that comes through that number. So there's a lot of great advantages if you're simply using the on-call mobile. So I just want to tout that. It's a pretty cool feature that we're one of the first companies to actually use, and we're actually using it at the Zone right now. Next thing I wanted to quickly show you is pretty cool for Entrata. I think it's pretty cool, but some of you may be a little bit alarmed to see it. We have an ability under a residence account. So this is a test database. If you go into scheduled billing, a lot of times we'll get an email saying like someone's changed the charges or something's happened with the charges. We don't know what happened or how it changed. Well, we can actually look into it. So if you go into someone's charges, let's say I want to know what happened to this utility one, they have an activity log that's unique for this code, and you can actually see I manually created it on this date. So it'll tell you the user and what happened. So if you ever have a problem, you can actually see who is the one making the change so that you can talk with them and use it as an educational moment to hopefully fix it and prevent it from happening in the future. It's pretty cool on our end as well, so that when we're getting those reports, we can dig into it a little more. You guys do have access in Entrata to do this, so please take advantage. Drill down into it, and you can see all the different changes that happen from this, whether it was posted or lease renew, different type of things. It's a pretty useful tool that we've found on our end. Kudos out to Sue, who actually showed me that. She is a wise, wise woman. All right. Next point is AP cutoff. I know there's a lot of things that people talk about. It seems almost like a broken record, or it becomes white noise. But I want to just mention it anyway with AP because it is extremely important that you process your AP on time. Credit cards should be done ahead of time so that AP is not a problem. I know that things get really busy and AP is easy to fall at the bottom of the list, but you need to understand the domino effect that you have. Not only are you submitting things late and causing a problem with, our hardworking AP people, a lot of times it can actually delay your month end. We had several properties that had that problem this month, but it will eventually end up delaying distributions, which means you're actually delaying when our investors are getting paid as well, all stemming from AP because of that domino effect. If you know anything about our company, it's that we know, we take it pretty seriously when it impacts our investors. So please, please, please take that time. I don't know what your role in AP is on your property. That does vary, but it's really important that you pay attention to those AP dates. Nina does a great job of getting those dates out there. There should never be a question on when it is. If you ever have a question on it, reach out. That's basically the rule of thumb for Horizon. If you don't know, you need to ask. Greg Beckel is a huge proponent of, people being proactive. And if you don't know something, look into it. Ask, figure it out. Don't just wait for it to come to you.
Can I add something to this?
Please.
So we have a Slack page, and we periodically will post updates on the AP, like cutoff time, or people have questions. If you're running behind on your AP, just talk to either Courtney or me, whoever does your AP, because we can generally work with you. I think leaving us in the dark completely isn't the best route to go. So as long as you're communicating with us so we can make sure everyone's on the same page, that's fine. But definitely check the Slack page or add, if you have questions or need anything, add it there, because that's a form for us, for everyone to be able to access.
Great. Thank you, Nina. Again, we don't want to sound like, we're gloom and doom all the time, but it is really important. I know there is a lot on everyone's plates. I completely understand that, but we need to also understand the impact that those kind of delays can have on our overall processes and staff throughout the entire process. So I won't harp anymore on it, but thank you. Next point I want to talk about is for Entrata and for OneSite is making sure that your monthly charges are posting each month. Too often we're finding we get a question about something, we'll look at an account, we'll find out that they've not been charged rent for 3 months. Something along those lines, and that's something that we should be checking. There's two easy, I say in quotes, easy way of doing it. For Entrata, that's the GPR report. So here's an example. And what you would want to do is simply go down the potential rent column, and you're looking at it. If it's 0, then that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong, but that means that you should look at it closer. If you have something else maybe like this, where it's an amount that seems high compared to market, you might want to look into it a little more. A lot of times, especially if it's legit, there'll be a very good reason for it and you'll remember it. So each month, obviously, you'll be like, oh, that's because of this, and it will get faster and faster. But if you do this on the 2nd of the month, after rent charges have posted, that gives you plenty of time to catch it, as well as notify the residents. Because if a resident goes on the portal and it shows that they don't owe money, they're probably not going to dig too much into it because they're like, oh, great, I don't owe anything. You would hope that they actually would contact you and ask why not, but we know that residents aren't looking to pay us money, so we don't want to bank on that. So please, for Entrata sites, go through this and just kind of take a look at it and see if anything looks off, if it's a 0 or if it's an odd amount, and research it a bit further. Now for our OneSite people, I'm not going to forget about you. The report, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, is a lost rent report. This one's pretty clear as well. It's just rent charged. Go down the rent charge report and see what stands out. If it's 0, if it's an odd amount, and do your due diligence and take a look at it. So that should be all you need to do. Again, please do this on the 2nd of the month, so it gives you, your charges have already posted, and it gives you time to dig into it. Okay, one quick mention, not going to dig too much into it as well, is the credit card in the office. We talked a lot about it last month. Just a reiteration, whenever possible, please avoid doing credit cards in the office. Please, help them, your residents, set those payments up online. You can be there right there with them to turn it into a customer service moment where you can teach them how to do it, but it removes the liability from us, which is a big thing, and it's encouraging our residents to utilize the portals, which is a really big thing. I know that's more Entrata than OneSite, as we have more credit card flexibility with Entrata, but just a reminder, please avoid doing credit cards in the office for the residents. Rather use it as that teaching moment and that good customer service moment. Okay, final collection agency payments. We talked about this last month as well, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an update as well as some clarification. With both OneSite and Entrata, whenever you get a payment from a collection agency, you're going to get your cut and the collection agency is going to get theirs. And what we want you to do is actually record both of those things at the same time. So if somebody, if you get a payment from the collection agency, you're going to enter the payment that you got, and you're also going to enter a credit to the agency code. It doesn't matter which system you're in, to reflect what the collection agency is collecting. And what that does is it will give us an accurate running balance on what is actually outstanding, rather than simply waiting until the collection agency said, okay, we're done, and then us considering the rest of it a write-off. We already have several sites. King's Housing is really good at this so far that have started using it. We have a help document out for OneSite. Entrata, we're still waiting on a few things. It's harder to get an example for that. But just to give you an example of what we're talking about, this is a payment stub that we got from Rent Collect Global to Lodges Southwest. And so what it's telling us is the payment is for the $793.35. Their commission was $277.67, so that's the amount we would enter as a credit to agency on the account. And then the payment was this amount, $515.68. So we would enter the payment, enter the credit, and then the balance would reflect what the resident truly does owe, or the former resident truly does owe at that point, if that makes sense. Please let us know if you need more help, and we'd be happy to do some one-on-one stuff with you, especially if you have an example right in front of you to do. I know a lot of times it's hard in theory to do things, but when you have a practical hands-on example in front of you, it's easier. So please let us know. Jessica or myself would be happy to schedule a call to walk you through it. Pretty straightforward, but again, it just allows us to do an accurate total rather than waiting until the very end. Close that.
So just to clarify on that, sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, fire away.
So I got distracted, but just to clarify, so that is not for final collection agency payments, just for, ticking down their balance?
That's a fantastic question. This actually will eliminate the need to do that final collection payment. We no longer want you using that in OneSite because we're trying to get OneSite and Entrata using the same process. And so you would just simply, every time you enter the payment, you would then enter that credit to agency. And theoretically, when you got to the end, you'd enter that last agency credit and you'd zero out the account anyway, and it wouldn't show as owing. So it would just kind of take that away from needing to do it. Great question, though.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. All right, so we have 5 more minutes. So I'm going to talk about something that I love to talk about. Moneyball, my Oakland A's. Now, I chose this picture compared to the cover of the book because I figured most of you would rather look at Brad Pitt than a picture of like a baseball. I could be wrong, but it's a little hard with everyone muted, but I'm guessing most of you have either heard of Moneyball or you've seen the movie, which is more likely than probably having read the book. But I love it. Number one, because it's a really good book and really good movie, and because it's about my Oakland A's. As an A's fan, I don't get a lot to cheer about, so having an entire movie and book dedicated to that franchise it makes me feel good inside. So I'm going to talk about it, and you have to listen. So hopefully you have heard about it. So I'll give you a quick rundown in case you haven't. The main character in this story is Brad Pitt in the movie, but he's playing a guy named Billy Beane, who runs the Oakland A's. He's not the owner, but he's what's called the general manager, who's pretty much the key decision maker for all the personnel moves. Now, when he was younger, he was actually a top prospect in baseball. He was somebody that everybody thought would be an all-star. In baseball, they have what's called 5 tools. He can run, he can hit, he can throw, he can field, and I don't remember what the 5th one is off the top of my head, but he could do it all. People, he had a scholarship to Stanford, but they were telling him, that'd be a waste. You should just sign a professional contract. And they threw money at him, and they had him convinced that, okay, I'm going to be successful because I have all of these amazing abilities. Well, he never reached that potential as a player, and nobody could quite figure out why, because when they just looked at everything he could do, it was there, but it never actually translated to the field. And so that created a desire within him to figure out what went wrong, what happened, why did he fail, or why did everybody else fail when they looked at him and said, yes, you are guaranteed to be successful, when in reality he wasn't. So because of his experience and his background, he had that desire to understand better what went into those type of things. All right, the setting, again, it's the Oakland A's. More specifically, it's in the year 2002. This team was a really good team. They just had a really successful season for us, which means we made the playoffs, lost the Yankees, which is like every year for us. And 4 of our best players, I say are, I'm invested in the team, they left the team because of money, basically. We couldn't afford to pay them. To give you an idea of what the A's had to pay players, they had the lowest payroll in baseball. Baseball is a weird sport in that they don't regulate payroll as much, so you can have a huge gap between the lowest and the highest. In 2002, their payroll was about $44 million. The Yankees was $125 million. And most of the teams were closer to the Yankees than the A's. So most of the teams had a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 advantage, roughly, with resources to pay their players. And so this team just came off this really successful season. They lost 4 of their best players. They don't have a lot of money. And here is Billy Beane, the leader of the team, trying to figure out how they can make it up, how they can become a good team again without the same resources. So his plan, and here's where it all ties together, is to try to figure out how to accomplish that. He needs to figure out how to find what other people have already missed. He needs to make full use of all the data that is available to them. He needs to avoid bias, and he needs to always constantly challenge those conventional concepts. So if you remember, I told you everyone thought he would be this huge success because of what they saw when he played. Like, oh, he looks so smooth, he has power, all these things, but it didn't translate. So he wanted to always challenge that just because someone looks good, it means they're going to be good. Not to give complete in detail about what happened, but they began to use numbers and analysis that no one else in the league had used before, and they pieced together, they actually use the term the island of misfit toys in the book, if you're familiar with the reference. Basically, a lot of spare parts that nobody else wanted. They pieced together a team that, once it found its groove, actually had a very successful year and made the playoffs when no one thought they would. And they actually set an American League record for wins in a row by winning 20 games in a row. And all because they embraced a new philosophy that no one else had, because they began to look at things that were different than the norm. Now, I love the book. I suggest you read the book, even if you don't like baseball, because it's really interesting. The point isn't that, baseball is great or that the A's are great, which they are. But the point is, you need to constantly be challenging what you think you know about something. You have to constantly be evolving and trying to understand things in more depth and never sitting back, because the moment that you think that you have won, that's when you actually start to lose. And it ties to Horizon, because Horizon never stops looking for competitive advantages. Horizon isn't at the bottom of the scrap pile with resources, but so what? That doesn't mean we can't look for ways to come out ahead. And if you look at how Horizon is set up, we have a lot of ways that we actually try to filter through data to get more information out of them, hopefully more information than our competitors. We have our J. Turner surveys. That's one example. We try to get that direct feedback. We also look at website analytics. Graham is really, really big at that. And that's just 2 things out of many that we look at that hopefully gives us that competitive advantage over the rest. So hopefully that makes sense on how that tied it. And my final thought with it would be, the greatest mistake a successful person or company can do is think they're at their peak, because the moment they feel they're at their peak, they actually start to fall off of it. All right, so it's my inspirational thing. Hopefully made sense. That is basically the call for this month. What I would request going forward, if you guys have any topics that you want us to give some examples on, or anything that you want us to, maybe like a guest speaker, obviously within reason. I'm not going to get Brad Pitt to join this call. He hasn't called me back yet. But if you have someone like that you like internally that you maybe want to talk about something, let me know and I'll see what I can do. I want to make it so that this call is valuable for you guys, not just for me. I don't need the ego boost. So please let us know. But thank you for taking the time out of your very busy day to join the call. I do appreciate it. Thank you for your hard work, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Clint. Thanks,
Thank you.
Clint.